Hi everybody, I'm here with Joey from itoldyouiwouldeatyou.
Hello.
How's quarantine life looking for you at the minute? How are things going?
It's all right. It's up and down. I feel like most people are having this sort of thing where like you either feel really productive or not productive enough and all that sort of thing. And that is one of those things where it's like, it's a really good idea, I think, to try and avoid that type of thinking. Like, as long as we're quarantining, you're doing the right thing,
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you say, there's quite a lot of some people to be like super productive and super creative while they're in quarantine, but it's the reality of it is that that's kind of, for a lot of people, that's a lot of added pressure on top of an already stressful situation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had days where I've felt really proud of myself and I've written things and stuff like that. I felt super productive, and I've had days, probably more days, where I've just woken up and thanked like the Lord that we have a working PS4. And,
it's that kind of vicious self-perpetuating angle of capitalism, is that we are in this society where we're forced to just grind away on a hamster wheel, and even when society's at breaking point and we have something like this happen, we're still subconsciously telling ourselves that that's what we have to keep doing.
Because I mean, the idea that on one level, like with someone who does something as sort of silly and arty and sort of frivolous as what I do, like my self-worth might be connected to making a piece of music or doing some work for someone that's going to bring some money in or something like that. But this whole situation sort of makes clear how much stuff doesn't have to be like that. You know what I mean? Like there are people who make a pretty salient argument that there hasn't been much need for the type of work we do since the Industrial Revolution. It's just a way to keep ourselves busy. It's just a way to keep the system how it is. We have the tools. I mean, a lot of people are learning right now that the job that they didn't like going to is more than easy to perform at home. For instance, of course, a lot of people know that's not the case with some jobs as well. But like, we're learning a lot of things, like there was apparently no government money, and now all they want to tell us is how much money they're putting into everything. I mean, they're still not putting in as much as they should, maybe not in the right places. But, these sort of things that the society has sort of been using as load-bearing sort of ideological poles are sort of falling down right now. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't there's a real dissonance happening.
So prior to the outbreak, what was 2020 looking like for the band, and how was the year going?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I imagine a lot of bands are going to have some interesting answers as well. But for us, we would have been demoing right now. We have half of an album written and demoed, and we have been sort of tossing around ideas for the next half and what we're going to do, and we've probably got 3-4 just sitting waiting for us all to go into a room and work on them. And then we're probably going to come out of this with even more, because I know that Josh is starting to get into a writing mood at home. And normally for me within the band, the creative process is kind of, I sort of follow Josh's lead a little bit. So I don't really feel like we're making a record till we've written a couple of songs that are basically me singing over Josh's instrumentals, because that's what feels like I Told You I'd Eat You. You know what I mean? Even if that's like a completely different genre or something, that's what feels like what we, gives us a basis for a record. So yeah, basically this would have been demoing time. We're going to hope to sort of keep it as sort of idea bouncing around time. But obviously, I mean, everyone had, everyone in the world's had a massive shock. So I think first thing was like making sure that we were all okay. Like we were all talking in the band thread a lot about like, making sure we could all make rent and stuff like that, making sure everyone was safe. I think we've all been applying for grants left, right and centre, which is, I think a lot of people have been. But yeah, like basically we had wanted to have an album out end of this year, ideally. And we were, talking with various people about that. We weren't even sure how we were going to release it yet. We were sort of tossing up ideas of maybe going the label route, or maybe even doing it ourselves. Like we we were still in very early talks about that. We kind of wanted to have the thing done before we talked about the business side of it. But now, given everything sort of fucking around, emailing is kind of the most productive thing we can do. So we might start thinking about like where it's going.
How about the live side of things?
We were looking at doing probably 3 more runs this year, which is a lot for us. It would be probably the most shows we played in a year since we formed, probably. Obviously, that's not happening right now. We were going to do an acoustic show coming up. That obviously was announced and then immediately put back. We were talking about doing some little runs with just like weekenders and stuff around this time, but mostly we were going to be taking this time off to record, and then we were going to, well, we've got like a long run that was going to be right at the end of this year going into the new year, and that is still up in the air. Like, there's a chance there may be some leeway there, but what terrifies us is doing anything irresponsible. You know, it may be that it gets to the point where things are allowed, but the scientific consensus is that we need to be still going off events and still doing stuff like that. And it might be that at that time the scene has to make a sort of moral, you know, take a moral stance in ourselves about whether or not we just follow government regulations or whether we consider ourselves beholden to a bigger responsibility. And broadly, as a band, we try and hold ourselves to the bigger responsibility. So the answer is we may end up playing some shows at the end of the year if it's safe, and the answer may be that we don't. And apart from that, we were looking at another run before that of about a week that would have been just a UK one.
That's great, Joey. So where's the best place for people to check out your music right now, and what can they do to support the band?
Cool, that's a good question. We are currently making sure that we're all set up to start doing merch again, because we had taken it off when we first went on lockdown because the postal service obviously was a little bit freaking out and stuff like that, and we want to make sure that if we are reintroducing merch, it's relatively soft. So right now, what you can do is go on our Bandcamp. Anything you buy there goes straight to our PayPal, so it's, you know, it's very useful for us to have. Other things people can do is there's you know, like the thing I've been doing is I've just been taking any artists that I know are like doing it themselves at the minute, and just you put that all on a big playlist, and then you turn the sound on Spotify down to 0, and you just keep that shit going all night and hit repeat on it, and then you probably just like paid your friends like a little bit of money. So just if you could get playlists like that, that'd be great, like really good. And do that with any band that you know care about, because most of your favorite artists are self-employed or right now essentially unemployed. So, you know, yeah, so of the obvious ones, Spotify, Bandcamp. There's also a link to donate to make sure we all keep being alive. That's up on Spotify. It's literally, again, it's just like a PayPal thing. And obviously we don't expect anyone to give anything they can't give, but if people could, that would be amazing. And we put out like a sort of silly youth crew B-side thing on our Bandcamp a few weeks ago, right at the start of lockdown, called Unionize, and it's kind of like me, Chevy Blazer, who does our art, and Ollie and Connor just sat in a room and made like a sort of Youth of Today type beat.
I love it, right up my street.
Yeah, and then we wrote a song about the importance of unions and the frustration of sort of living under this particular stage of capitalism, but it's also very, very silly and sort of balls to the wall. And that we've put that up, haven't I Told You I'd Eat You song, just on Bandcamp, so that there's something new for people if they want to do that, buy the discography or whatever. And it's, I'm pretty sure it's pay what you want. So if you can't afford it, then just download it. I'm not a cop, I won't tell anyone.